The height of the giants in the Book of Enoch is described as being 3,000 ells. A measurement when converted to a modern form of measurement will defy belief. In this video, I will give examples describing their size, why they grew so enormous, how much they ate, and what they ate. I will also disclose the 7 names given to them and how the Lord destroyed those giants that could stand above the sea level during the Great Flood. Firstly, let's delve into the height of the giants during the time of Enoch and Noah. The following is from the Book of Enoch, chapter 7, verses 1 through 2. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells. An ell is an obsolete form of measurement. The English ell, which was 45 inches, was used mostly for tailoring. If you multiply 45 inches times 3,000, convert it to feet, and you get 11,250 feet. But if you go by the biblical cubit, which the ell originally was, then it would be approximately 18 inches, which is from a man's elbow to the tip of the middle finger. Multiply 18 inches times 3,000 and you get 54,000 inches. Convert that to feet and you get 4,500 feet. I think the 18-inch ell sounds more realistic when talking about the size of the giants. To be standing at the height of 4,500 feet is quite impressive by any standard. So how are the giants that stood 4,500 feet tall, basically as tall as a good-sized mountain, drowned by the Great Flood, especially since some of them could stand well above the surface of the waters or sea level? For this answer, let's go to the exhaustive work, The Legends of the Jews, Volume 1 by Louis Ginzberg. From an excerpt in chapter 4 it says as follows: The water alone could not have made an end of them, for they were giants in stature and strength. When Noah threatened them with the scourge of God, they would make reply, If the waters of the flood come from above, they will never reach up to our necks. And if they come from below, the soles of our feet are large enough to dam up the springs. But God bade each drop pass through Gehenna before it fell to earth, and the hot rain scalded the skin of the sinners. The punishment that overtook them was befitting their crime. As their sensual desires had made them hot, and inflamed them to immoral excesses, so they were chastised by means of heated water. So imagine the giants trying to keep from getting burned by the hot rain by submerging in the water, but only for so long, because eventually they needed oxygen and would need to resurface to get air, only to get burned again. So it was either drown or get burned to death. There was no escaping their fate. The following story is about the fallen angels Azazel and Shemhazai. I want to add that Shemhazai is also known as Semjaza in the Book of Enoch, and Shemhazai's 2 titanic sons Oya and Aya are also a part of the story. I will use information gathered from the Book of Giants and the Legends of the Jews by Louis Ginzberg. I changed only one word where I thought it was needed. The story goes as follows. The fall of Azazel and Shemhazai came about in this way. When the generation of the deluge began to practice idolatry, God was deeply grieved. The 2 angels, Shemhazai and Azazel, arose and said, O Lord of the world, it has happened that which we foretold at the creation of the world, and a man, saying, What is man that thou art mindful of him? And God said, And what will become of the world now without man? Whereupon the angels, We will occupy ourselves with it. Then said God, I am well aware of it, and I know that if you inhabit the earth, the evil inclination will overpower you, and you will be more iniquitous than ever men. The angels pleaded, Grant us but permission to dwell among men, and thou shalt see how we will sanctify thy name. God yielded to their wish, saying, Descend and sojourn among men. When the angels came to earth and beheld the daughters of men in all their grace and beauty, they could not restrain their passion. Shemhazai saw a maiden named Istahar, and he lost his heart to her. She promised to surrender herself to him if he first taught her the ineffable name, by means of which he raised himself to heaven. He assented to her condition, but once she knew it, she pronounced the name, and herself ascended to heaven, without fulfilling her promise to the angel. God said, Because she kept herself aloof from sin, we will place her among the 7 stars, that men may never forget her. And she was put in the constellation of the Pleiades. Shemhazai and Azazel, however, were not deterred from entering into alliances with the daughters of men, and to the first 2 sons were born. Azazel began to devise the finery and the ornaments by means of which women allure men. Thereupon God sent Metatron to tell Shemhazai that he had resolved to destroy the world and bring on a deluge. The fallen angel began to weep and grieve over the fate of the world and the fate of his 2 sons. If the world went under, what would they have to eat, they who needed daily 1,000 camels, 1,000 horses, and 1,000 steers? These 2 sons of Shemhazai, Oya and Aya by name, dreamed dreams. The one saw a great stone which covered the earth, and the earth was marked all over with lines upon lines of writing. An angel came, and with a knife obliterated all the lines. leaving but 4 letters upon the stone. The other son saw a large pleasure grove, planted with all sorts of trees. But angels approached bearing axes, and they felled the trees, sparing a single one with 3 of its branches. When Oya and Aya awoke, they went to their father, who interpreted the dreams for them, saying, God will bring a deluge, and none will escape with his life, excepting only Noah and his sons. When they heard this, the 2 began to cry and scream, but their father consoled them. Soft, soft, do not grieve. As often as men cut or haul stones or launch vessels, they shall invoke your names. Oya, Aya. This prophecy soothed them. Shemhazai then did penance. He suspended himself between heaven and earth, and in this position of a penitent sinner he hangs to this day. But Azazel persisted obdurately in his sin of leading mankind astray by means of sensual allurements. For this reason 2 he-goats were sacrificed in the temple on the Day of Atonement, the one for God, that he pardon the sins of Israel, the other for Azazel, that he bear the sins of Israel. Unlike Istahar, the pious maiden Naamah, the lovely sister of Tubal Cain, led the angels astray with her beauty, and from her union with Shamdan sprang the devil Asmodeus. She was as shameless as all the other descendants of Cain, and as prone to bestial indulgences. Canaanite women and Canaanite men alike were in the habit of walking abroad naked, and they gave themselves up to every conceivable manner of lewd practices. Of such were the women whose beauty and sensual charms tempted the angels from the path of virtue. The angels, on the other hand, no sooner had they rebelled against God and descended to earth than they lost their transcendental qualities and were invested with sublunary bodies, so that a union with the daughters of men became possible. The offspring of these alliances between the angels and the Canaanite women were the giants, known for their strength and their sinfulness, as their very name, the Emim, indicates. They inspired fear. They had many other names. Sometimes they go by the name Rephaim, because one glance at them made one's heart grow weak, or by the name Gibberim, simply giants, because their size was so enormous that their thigh measured 18 ells, or by the name Zamzumim, because they were great masters in war, or by the name Anakim, because they touched the sun with their neck, or by the name Ivam, because, like the snake, they could judge of the qualities of the soil, or finally by the name Nephilim, because, bringing the world to its fall, they themselves fell. I want to add that in the Book of Enoch it lists 19 leaders of the Watchers by name, which I will not list here, but you can find it in the Book of Enoch, chapter 6, verse 7. And in chapter 6, verse 8 it says, These are their chiefs of tens. So when it says chiefs of tens, my question to this is tens of what? I think Sherry Shriner has the answer in her excellent article, The Difference Between Fallen Angels, Demons, Aliens, Jedi, and the Watchers. The following is an excerpt from that article in which she talks about the Book of Enoch, chapter 6, verse 7, and Sherry gives us an idea of how many Watchers fell and mated with human women, and she says as follows. In verse 7 it says that there were 200 chiefs on the summit of Mount Hermon, which is located on the border of Lebanon and Syria, and stands over 9,000 feet high. They agreed to come to earth and cohabitate with women. These 200 chiefs were in each charge of tens of thousands of other watchers. So how many fell with them we do not know. Maybe they all did. That would put the number into the hundreds of thousands that fell from heaven and came to earth. So when Sherry states that each were in charge of tens of thousands, that must be what the Book of Enoch means by chiefs of tens. So there were tens of thousands upon tens of thousands and so forth of watchers who came to earth to have sex with human women, which would explain the worldwide discoveries of mud fossil giants. There must be hundreds of thousands of yet to be discovered mud fossil giants. In the Old Testament pseudepigrapha, edited by James H. Charlesworth, it gives 2 different examples of just how many giants were destroyed during the deluge or great flood. The following is an excerpt from the pseudepigrapha Apocalypse of Baruch, Slavonic version, and it says as follows. And the angel said to me, Rightly you asked me, when God made the flood upon the earth, he drowned every firstling, and he destroyed 104,000 giants. The next example is from Apocalypse of Baruch, Greek version, and it says as follows. And the angel said, Rightly you ask, when God caused the flood over the earth and destroyed all flesh, and 409,000 giants. Why did those pre-flood giants get so titanic during the days of Enoch and Noah? For the answer, let's go to the enlightening article, The Serpent and the Illuminati by Sherry Shriner. The following is an excerpt from that article, and it states as follows. The mixing of fallen angel alien with human DNA led to a giantism defect in the DNA of the hybrid offspring. Another excerpt from the same article states as follows: the mixing of genes started with Cain's daughters, the women of Canaan, who created a DNA defect called giantism. Their children were giants. Next, let's go to Sherry Schreiner's internet radio show titled Sherry Talk Radio. The following is an excerpt from her December 29, 2008 show, and Sherry says as follows: when angels fell, they would procreate with human women and create this giant offspring, so they have always been on the earth. What's happened over time, and I don't know the time spans, but the gigantism defect that was caused by the procreation of these angels and human women created a gigantism defect in the DNA. As we just learned from Sherry Schreiner, it was the mixing of fallen angel DNA with human DNA from the sexual unions of the Watchers with human women that led to the defect known as gigantism. It was this defect that caused a radical growth in the Watchers' progeny, thus creating those pre-flood giants that grew to titanic proportions, thus needing an astronomical amount of food to stay alive that they consumed all the livestock. Remember the example of Oya and Aya, the two giant sons of the Watcher Shemhazai. They needed to eat daily 1,000 camels, 1,000 horses, and 1,000 steers. I'm sure most, if not all, of the giants had to eat similar amounts of livestock daily to survive, and when they ate all that up and there was nothing left to eat, they ate mankind.